What if one of television's most iconic dramas was truly saying goodbye? That's the big question surrounding Downton Abbey, the grand finale, the film that has just arrived in cinemas. For more than a decade, audiences have been drawn into the grandeur of Highclere Castle, the secrets hidden behind those walls, and the ever-changing dynamics between the aristocracy and the servants who kept their world alive. And now, after all this time, the story has finally come to what feels like its definitive conclusion. But is this really the end, or just another chapter waiting to be opened? The idea of a final finale is almost hard to believe in today's entertainment landscape. Series that once ended often return years later in the form of reboots, prequels, or spin-offs. That's why so many longtime Downton fans have been skeptical. Could a franchise as beloved and profitable as this really be over? To settle the question, 3 of the original cast members, Laura Carmichael, Joanne Froggatt, and Michelle Dockery, offered their perspective, and their answers might surprise you. Carmichael, who portrayed the quietly resilient Lady Edith, didn't hesitate when asked about the future. She confirmed, "It's the last one, simple, clear, and absolute." Froggatt, known and loved for her portrayal of Anna, stood firmly beside her, insisting that this is indeed the true ending. In an industry where so many shows drift on past their prime, their certainty carries real weight. For the cast, this conclusion wasn't just an ending, it was a carefully chosen goodbye. Carmichael spoke about how rare it is in television to control when a story stops. Most series never know which season will be their last, which often leaves storylines unfinished or rushed. But with Downton, both the original TV run and the films have been granted something unusual, the chance to wrap things up on their own terms. Carmichael described it as a gift, a privilege that allowed the cast and creators to bring closure not once, but twice. Joanne Froggatt echoed the thought with emotion, saying it felt like a love letter to the fans who have stood by the Crawleys and their household for 15 years. She reflected on how rare it is for a series that began episodically to end so gracefully, with not just one carefully planned finale, but 2. For her, it was the only fitting way to close the book on a saga that has meant so much to both the actors and the audience. And what about the film itself? Without spoiling key moments, it's safe to say the grand finale delivers on its promise of closure. Storylines that have stretched across years come together in a way that feels both climactic and deeply moving. Fans will experience laughter, tears, and nostalgia, but most importantly, they'll leave the theater with the sense that nothing has been left unfinished. The movie doesn't just tie up loose ends, it gives each character a farewell that feels earned. Michelle Dockery, who has embodied Lady Mary since the very first episode, shared her own perspective. For her, the film carried a sense of transition, almost like handing the torch to the next generation. She explained that while the story leaves a faint sense of life beyond this chapter, it doesn't belong to the original cast anymore. Instead, it feels like the world of Downton Abbey has passed into history, with the Crawleys era finally closing its doors. Yet, as every fan knows, Hollywood never likes to say never. Creator Julian Fellowes himself told Deadline earlier this year that he's learned to keep the door slightly open. His exact words were, "Never say never." That admission sparked speculation that maybe, just maybe, the story could evolve into something new. But even with that tempting possibility, the cast remains firm. Their chapter is over. Froggatt even suggested what a continuation might look like, not a sequel, but perhaps a prequel. She imagined a version of the story told with a completely different cast, revisiting the same characters in an earlier era. It's an intriguing idea, one that could dive even deeper into the history of the Crawleys and their estate. But if such a project ever comes to life, it won't include the actors audiences have grown so attached to. Fellowes himself reinforced this sentiment in another interview, admitting that this truly is the end of the original ensemble. After spending so many years together both on television and in film, he believes the journey has reached its natural conclusion. There may be spin-offs or even so-called rip-offs, as he jokingly put it, but they would exist in an entirely different form. For this cast, this chapter, and this story, the curtain has finally fallen. It's a bittersweet moment for fans. On one hand, it's hard to let go of characters who have become like old friends. Lady Mary, Lord Grantham, Carson, Anna, Edith. Their struggles and triumphs have unfolded across dinner tables, ballrooms, and quiet hallways for years. Watching them evolve has been a journey filled with joy and heartbreak. But on the other hand, there's something powerful about a story that knows when to end. Not every show gets that privilege, and sometimes, leaving while the audience still cares is the most respectful choice of all. Think about how many beloved series have stumbled by dragging on too long. Their endings feel rushed, unsatisfying, or disconnected from the characters we once loved. Downton Abbey avoided that fate not once, but twice. First with its 2015 television finale, which fans still consider one of the most graceful endings in modern TV, and now again with the grand finale. That kind of closure is rare, and it's part of what makes this moment so significant. Of course, the speculation will never truly stop. Fans will continue to debate whether we might one day see the Crawleys return, whether through a fresh interpretation, a bold reboot, or a story set in a completely different era. And Julian Fellowes, ever the diplomat, will likely keep saying never say never. But the truth is, the heart of Downton Abbey lies with this original cast, and according to them, their time is done. So what does that mean for the legacy of the series? It means that Downton Abbey now belongs to history in the same way the world it portrayed belonged to the past. The show gave audiences a glimpse into a fading era of British aristocracy, blending grandeur with humanity, tradition with change. And now, fittingly, it too has joined the ranks of completed classics. For longtime fans, this ending may feel like saying goodbye to family. It's emotional, it's final, but it's also satisfying. Because sometimes the most memorable stories are the ones that close their doors gracefully, leaving us with memories that feel complete rather than stretched thin. So, while the castle may still stand, and while rumors of prequels or spin-offs may circulate for years, the tale of Downton Abbey as we know it has come to an end. And perhaps that's exactly what makes it so powerful. It's not just another show that dragged on until the audience grew tired. It's a story that chose to bow out with dignity, reminding us that every chapter, no matter how grand, must one day find its final page. And with Downton Abbey, the grand finale, that final page has been written.